All right. And it looks like we're recording. Welcome, everybody. Today is June 20, 2026, and this is our Solo of the Month group practice. Solo of the Month is a community of flute players of all ages and levels that come together to simply practice music together and seek connection, not perfection. So we only work on a solo for about a month, which isn't always enough time to get it completely polished, but we can still learn something wonderful about the repertoire and our appreciation of it. This month's repertoire are the 8 Caprices by Stamitz. And of course, we know that some of these caprices might actually not have been written by Stamitz, but by somebody else whose name I can't think of right now. Tacit, I think, is the name. As a group, we focused on the 3rd caprice in G major. And then also some people were working on the 8th caprice, which is in, it looks like also G major. So 2 G major caprices. And we'll get just a little bit of warming up for that. So before we begin sharing out, let's just start by playing a G major scale 5-note. G, A, B, C, D, C, B, A, G. This is much like your Taffnell et Gobert 17 grand daily exercises, number 1, or the 3rd exercise, I think, in my scale book for those of you who use that. So at any speed, we'll take those first 5 notes of the G major scale. G, A, B, C, D, C, B, A, G. Let's take up the octave. Let's go back down to the lower octave and start adding some articulation. Let's start by going all tongued. You can choose your tonguing style or consonants. VA. Now, I'm not going to do any fancy warm-ups together for this today. The piece is relatively simple, and it is in this key. You can, of course, keep practicing more. But I wanted to take a second where we all played together, and in my book, as importantly, we all breathed together. So often when we get ready to play, especially in vulnerable situations like playing in front of other people, even virtually like this, we take shallower and tighter breaths. And so hopefully you were feeling the warmth and openness of the inhales that I was taking, and also feeling warmth and openness in your inhales. So the Stamitz, the rondo, the 3rd caprice in G major, does start off in G major. And then you'll notice around measure 88, there's a key change where we get 2 flats in the key signature. Anybody out there know what key we moved to for a while? Go ahead and unmute yourself and just shout it out.
B flat.
B flat major or? Any other guesses? What other scale has 2 flats in the key signature?
G minor.
G minor, yes, exactly. So in this case, we are moving into G minor, which is why we see so many of those F sharps in there. Notice that we don't see a ton of E naturals, though, which is how we're more used to playing our minor scales as melodic instruments. So the minor scale that we might consider warming up with could be the G harmonic minor scale, which would be G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, minor 3rd up to the F sharp, G. So let's try the G harmonic minor scale to get ready for that second part. Again, thinking notes, G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, F sharp, G, F sharp, E flat, D, C, B flat, A, G. Let's go and play that scale as the last part of our warm-up too. Now, of course, we could do that in both octaves. And you're welcome to keep working on that as we start to get ready into the rest of the meeting. But do you see how we move into that G minor? The first note of a scale is the most important, the tonic, the G. And the fifth note, the dominant, is the next most important in the scale, D. And much of what we see in this piece throughout is a relationship between the G's and the D's. And so we'll use those to make some decisions of where we're going to lead or phrase. All right. Any other thoughts or questions about just the general technique we need for this caprice? And those of you who have been practicing at home, what are some other things that you've been doing to warm up in preparation for this piece? Anybody out there have a favorite warm up that you did before you would practice this caprice? All right. All right, let's see. I would love opinions on phrasing in the more scalar passages, such as measures 30 through 43. Okay, let me write that down. Phrasing. So looking at this piece from the beginning then, let's see. I think one of the things that we are wanting to talk about is the grace notes or appoggiatura or ornaments in general. So much of these I would describe as appoggiatura and some of them as crushed appoggiatura, which are then quicker. This piece is written by Stamitz after the Baroque period was ending or the classical period was beginning, and Stamitz was a composer who was a part of the Mannheim school. So there are traditions that are changing as far as the way that ornamentation and performance practice were being considered. But change was very slow at this time. They didn't have Instagram influencers and all of a sudden somebody posted a video and then within 24 hours, everybody was picking up a new trend. It was more like you'd have an idea, you'd write a treatise, you'd copy a few copies of it and hope that a horse-drawn bookseller would take it to a town nearby and somebody else would read it and be inspired by what you said. So a lot of this is going to be slow transitions from one style into the next, or a lot of overlap. At the beginning of this rondo, though, there isn't very much time for these ornaments. So I think this is a really great way of treating them like the crushed appoggiatura, those that go just as quickly as possible so we can still focus on putting the note on the beat. So the beginning, just a quick little ornament on those. There may be times, though, that we want to use a full appoggiatura, which comes from the Italian to lean. And as we go through this piece, maybe we'll notice a few places where we do want to lean on the appoggiaturas a bit more. Any places like that come to mind where you know that you're going to be leaning on the appoggiatura? Anybody see one right off the bat? And then phrasing wise, there's another consideration that I like that we'll talk about after we hear a few people play. So let's go ahead and have some people share out their playing so we can make a few discussions. And I think Dr. Deborah, you were one of the people who was excited to play this for us. So let's hear a little bit about it and then we can talk about what's going on after we hear you.
Well, yes, I am excited to play and get humanly dissected. Yes. Okay.
Mwaha. Wonderful playing, wonderful playing. You're getting all the applause. And of
I didn't
course,
know how far to go, but I didn't want to, hog the hour.
no, you're welcome to hog. And so let's take a pause there and discuss. And if you want to play on, you can, because you're the only person who so far has said they're excited to play this movement. So, all right. So what are some things in the audience that you've noticed so far? Does anybody have anything they'd like to share out to Deborah? Either opinions that might help her enhance her performance, or things that you thought she did amazingly well. It's all welcome here because we're all friends wanting to grow together. And of course, you're welcome to continue typing those in if things come up along the way. Deborah, I thought that was really wonderful. I loved the ornaments that you added that were on page. They were delightful and cute. Some of those little trills made it fun. And coming out of the Baroque period, that type of tradition would have absolutely still been practiced, of adding some ornamentation and having fun with it. Deborah, what are a few things that you did that you really enjoyed, that you thought you did well?
I really like this. I mean, it could go obviously faster. I just really like the 6/8. It just, you have a tendency with the 6/8 meter to play forward, with your air and everything. So I really do favor the 6/8 meter. But yeah. I've never played this piece before, and I'm very excited to do all of the caprices. It's just a great piece.
Yeah, great. And I've never played it before. That's one of the things I love about this Solo of the Month group is it's usually music I've either never played or I've only taught but never actually seriously looked at. So it's fun for us to learn these new things together. Now, Deborah, are there things in it that you for sure want to talk about that didn't feel comfortable or didn't feel quite set?
Well, that's coming up in the 16th section. Just keep, even though, it's a 6/8 meter, we have a tendency of going backwards, and we just got to keep moving forward on it. So, it's a tricky meter to slow down.
Yes. And that has to do one of the things that I think maybe it would be fun for us to try. Now, this is, again, my personal opinion and consideration. I would love it if you would try it today, maybe try it a few times and make your choice later of whether you want to keep this as adopted practice in this piece or not, right? So This is one person's opinion. With the thought of that forward motion that you've actually said twice now. So I don't know if you guys hear, my dog is having a little cuddle fuss next to me. So there's all that snuffy dog sound and stuff like that. I think a few of the breaths that you take within the long notes might be fun to try moving to different places. So if we look at the first two measures, for example, I think that A, F sharp does very much lead to the D on beat 4. And I think it'd be really fun if we phrased to that D, because then we have the D major arpeggio. So at the beginning, we could try. Now let's just try that. So phrasing 2 beat 4 or phrasing 2 beat 1 in some of these situations, rather than taking breaths between the big notes, which make more sense in some ways because the longer notes, there's usually more time to interrupt the flow without interrupting the meter. But let's give that a try and just see how that style of phrasing feels to you.
Me again?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I'm still going. Okay.
After the D.
After?
Yeah, just to complete that D major arpeggio.
I'm sorry.
love it if the trill, which is exciting energy forward, went to the F sharp. Whether you want to add the Nachschlag or not. Let's try to have the trill continue the energy moving forward to the downbeat. So not taking a breath before the F sharp.
Okay.
Excellent.
Oh, so, I like that. I really do.
Yeah. And right now we're taking time for a big breath. You also mentioned tempo. So if you went on a faster tempo, these could be phrase gestures, but not take a breath. And then you'd be able to get through longer phrases with less interruption.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did have to sneak a few breaths in there just because I didn't take a good enough one. And it's also super hot and humid, which makes my breathing really tight. But that kind of phrasing gestures of moving forward. Does that feel like something you might want to try a little bit?
I love that. I love that. That makes it more 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, moving it forward.
It propels it forward. Yeah, that's the goal.
I love that.
In measure 9, that trill. So again, the Mannheim school was leading into the classical period, but chances are trills would have still been done from the note above, from the upper note of the trill. So let's try from measure 9 playing the A, then F sharp, E, and then trill. Another thing, I think it's called Nachschlag, the trill ending would have been common, and I think there's plenty of time there to add that. So let's try A, F sharp, E, trill, D, E, D.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, sloppy fingers. Yeah.
Oh, that's more final.
Yeah, at least I think in some of those places where it does feel like a good cadence, that makes a lot of sense to do.
Yeah.
We might not be able to do it at every trill, but that one's a good place. I think in measure 44, that trill is another one to make sure, well, that's the same trill essentially. So a couple of those trills, measure 67, trill from the upper note, and then do the little Nachschlag trill ending to make it sound a little bit more final. Let's continue the concept of phrasing this next chunk for just a little bit. So in measure, my handwriting is far too small. I think 20, the D, D sharp, E, that chromaticism, D, D sharp absolutely wants to go to the E uninterrupted without a breath, I think. Yeah. And then some of those dotted chord note Cs, I think it's tempting to take the breath there, but I think it's really interesting if we take the C to the A and then think of the next few notes as projecting forward after that.
Oh, wow.
Did you hear both of those in the little demonstration?
Oh, okay.
Let's give it a try.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And let's try the Nachschlag on that one too. G-A-G. Excellent. So I think phrasing to the beat, the bigger beats, either 1 or 4, does help that the music propel forward, the continuing motion of it all. And I think some of those things that you're doing just now was starting to give that effect and have it felt like it was more forward motion. And again, of course, if we go faster, some of these breaths will be a little bit easier. And if we go slower, we can take plenty of time for breaths. So both are good options, right?
Yes, and it's just a lovely piece to, explore. And I'm glad, it was chosen for this month.
Yeah, excellent. Me too. And thank you for sharing that first part out. I want to read to you that the comments that you got include love your added ornamentation and consistent tempo. Bravo. And I love the clarity of tone and the 6/8 feel. It feels a bit more lightness, higher centered tone would provide a bit more energy, matching the allegro vibe a bit more. Okay, so it seems like some feedback might be if you make a little bit more lift and a little bit more lightness, it'll add to that allegro vibe. I think, am I interpreting that right? Is that something you'd like to demonstrate or talk about?
Me?
No, I was looking down to.
Oh, thank God.
With the feedback.
Get me off the hot seat.
Oh no, you're doing great on the hot seat, Dr. Deborah. So yeah, a little bit of lift and a little bit of lightness will help maybe feel a little bit more dancey. So some of that could happen with tempo. Personally, if I'm practicing something that's gonna go, and I know I'm gonna play at a certain tempo, when I'm practicing slower, I don't usually make my staccatos too short, or I don't usually do too much lift, because the ratio of sound to silence, the faster you go, the bigger that ratio sounds. So if you're putting just a millisecond of silence in with your tongue, when you go really fast, that millisecond feels like a bigger amount of space. So some of that could be tempo too. But if this is your goal tempo, then maybe a little bit more lift, especially between some of those repeated pitches. There were a couple of places where you had like 2 Gs in a row. And one place specifically measure 19, 18, 17, 16, measure 15 with those 2 As in a row. That might be a good place to put a little bit more lift. And then hopefully Nick comes to talk about articulation, because the diction and articulation variations that Nick wants to talk about could also make a really big difference in the way that those are going to sound. So we did have Teddy do articulation workshop with us a couple of months ago when we were playing a traditional, Baroque piece. And she talked about using different articulation strokes to help create different amount of lightness. So like a two do, I think it was two do ru for some of these. Right, kind of using the articulation to put a little bit more weight on the bigger beats and a little bit more lightness on those other beats. So great comments there and great playing.
Thank you.
Deborah, would you like to go ahead and play in that 30 section a bit so we hear some of these 16th notes and can talk about the phrasing there?
Me?
Yeah. Or Chris, is that something that you're wanting to try?
I think Chris should do it. Chris is really, really wanting to do it. I can tell. I feel it. I'm going to turn off my mic.
Chris, you're muted if you are wanting to, bud.
There we go. Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chris.
I'll play from measure 30 to 44. I'll do that 16th note section.
Excellent. And before you do, I just want to point out, we have the addition of a lot of C sharps. So we talked about how the first note of the scale is the most important, the fifth, the dominant is the next most, the D. So for a while here, our composer is leaning into that dominant key, D major, with the C sharps. And then he also adds in just, I think, one of the runs, maybe 2 of the runs, a little bit of G sharp, which would be then the dominant of D. So it's kind of like he's going around that circle of fourths and finding some of these nice movement to keep the audience interested in the notes we're playing. You may notice sometimes music feels like it stays in one key and gets stagnant for a while. These pieces of music where the composer bounces around keys a little bit more tends to keep our interest. So, all right, Chris, let's hear 30.
All right.
Bravo, Chris. All right, tell me something about your playing that you liked just now.
Well, I really liked this was kind of when I done this section, I was trying to decide if I was going to do single tongue or double tongue, which my tempo is going to be a little bit where I can single tongue it because my double tongue is very weak, which I'm working on. But I was trying to really just let some of those upper notes sing, put a little spin on those upper notes. I still think a little bit, I played it all the way through. I played great on it, but I can probably do a little lighter on the tonguing on the 16 notes because to me, when I hear it, it's kind of harsh. It's not, I want it more connected, not like legato, but more connected instead of ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. So I'm going to work on that for the final part of it.
Yeah, great. I think it was wonderful. So is articulation your biggest concern in that section, or where do you feel like you would want to invest some more energy?
I don't think articulation is an issue. I really didn't think about Teddy's last one about the different articulations until somebody mentioned it. So I want to go back and work on that. But yeah, I'll probably change the articulation a little bit on that. Because that just sounds, to me, when I played it, it's just too dry. It wasn't, listening to it, it was good. I could do it, but I don't like the way it sounds. I'm definitely going to try some different articulations, as Teddy has suggested.
Yeah, and I didn't think about, really revisiting that talk from Teddy either until just this morning, to be perfectly honest. And I was like, oh my goodness, we've got such great resources in our Solo of the Month group. And I need to remember to go back and revisit those resources because yes, I absolutely agree. And as far as the non-legato-ness of the 16th notes, I think just having the tongue feel lighter, but a big thing for that is going to be to keep the air consistently blowing through. So sometimes when the tongue feels like it's getting heavy or getting thick or too pointed, it's because we're focusing on the actual muscle action of the tongue, rather than the air pressure staying continuous and the tongue just being able to float on that air, which then adds a little bit of ease and will take some of that pointedness away. A cellist that I worked with in grad school, I was in grad school, he was a professional already by then, but we were performing together, said that when you look at this period of music, the smallest duration of notes, which is the 16th notes, should be relatively legato. And the next step up from that, which would be quarter notes, or so eighth notes would be relatively like lifted or more staccato, and then longer notes a little bit thicker, just kind of every other one kind of like that. And we take that approach, then our quarter notes will have some weight. Bum, 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 ba, da, da, bum, bum, ba. But then those 16th notes can be a little bit legato. I think in this case, a legato, but with a less active tongue would be good because we want to make sure that we have tone on all of these notes too. So if it gets too pointed, then it begins to like, it loses its tone quality a little bit. I didn't hear loss of tone in yours right now, which is wonderful. I think you played it really, really quite nicely. But I would love to see what it feels like to have the focus on the continuation of the air in those scales. So let's take the run and measure 31.
And I also,
and just, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
And I also was just, while you were talking, I was thinking maybe more of instead of a ta-ta-ta as a articulation, maybe doing like a da-da-da or a do-do-do. That would probably lighten the tongue up a little bit.
All right, so let's do this. Let's take that first long run, that D major scale from the high D to the low A, and do it all slurred, just so you can focus on the continuation of your airstream. Now let's try it with some of those articulations that you mentioned, the ta or the do or the.
Okay.
Tell us which one you're going to do, and then let's hear it.
Probably the do. The do. Yeah, that automatically just sounds 100% better.
All right,
Yeah.
and let's try a different one just for fun. We can always go back, right? Let's try to do, like a to do kind of an articulation, and see how that feels.
Okay.
And just because we're all metal flute players, let's try our double tongue, tuku. See how that feels. All right, now that you've tried a few things, of course, try them a few times. You know, one outfit might not feel right today, but it could feel right tomorrow. Which felt the best now that you've tried 3 different articulations, or 4 with the first one that you did?
Probably the to do.
The to do is feeling the best now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's more fitting for this piece.
As long as it feels good to you, that's what matters to me. So, and you know, though, that you're not being handcuffed, you're not being locked or chained to one decision. You can always change your mind, right? And those of you who have ever worked with me know that as a teacher, I changed my mind quite a lot also. There's also some consideration of, does everything that is not written as slurred need to be tongued? How do you feel about adding some slurs in there, Chris?
I haven't really tried that. Now I did in measure 33. I did slur after those 16th notes there. But I'll play around with adding some slurs. I might be able to slur one set and tongue another set.
Yeah, and there is place for that variation. For example, 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, and measure 30, 36 and 37 are exactly repeated in 38 and 39, where maybe the first time you do tongue, and the second time you slur, that's something we consider, or a dynamic contrast between those two. And other things to also consider as far as articulation in this section and others, if we want to bring out a little bit of some of the harmonic weight or harmonic changes, adding a slur to the first pair of notes where we're wanting to bring those notes out is going to add a little bit more thickness, a little bit more weight, a little bit more sound in general, and that can help. So in that section, for example, if you wanted those G's to stick out, you could slur them. Or if you wanted the D to stick out in the D majors that follow, to me, those two examples sound completely different. They both sound pleasant to me. If I were at a concert and I heard it done one way, I wouldn't be happier or sadder than a different concert hearing it done a different way. But did you hear how just changing? And so the first time I slurred the G, E, and the second time I slurred the D, F sharp, and then the D, C sharp. Did you hear a changed where the music effect was leading? A little bit. So let's try both of those just to try them on. Again, we're just putting on a hat. We can take the hat off, see if it fits or not. So let's try the first example where we slur the G and E and then have everything else essentially tongued.
Sorry, I thought you was talking to everybody. Okay.
Let's do one or the other for now. I don't mind them both being done, but let's try doing just the GE. Good. And now let's slur the Ds. Yeah. So what do you notice is the difference between those two considerations?
Well, I like the fact that when we slur the G to the E, that the G and the E really stands out. And as with the next measure with the D, doing the Ds, it just puts some more emphasis on the Ds. It just makes the music pop out more on those runs, and it sounds really good.
Yeah, and of course, your first instinct was to do both of those together, which is also a fine example, or a fine thing to consider. So we want to have enough affect, enough emotion, enough interest to the music that people stay engaged, but not so much that it sounds cheesy. So that's just personal perspective of how it's going to work. You could consider some of those slurs and the and the 16th notes that follow also. So for me, when a student says, should I slur this or not slur this? My question I don't want to like pull out a textbook written like 150 years ago and say, this is how it would have been done. Instead, my opinion now is what articulation style is going to help you say what you're wanting to say in that music. Because the people who wrote those treatises, they aren't alive anymore and they're not going to judge you. I mean, right? Where you're going to find judgment is mostly from ourselves. And so if it isn't feeling authentic to you when you're playing it, then it's not going to sound authentic to the audience. So since we are our biggest critic, our biggest judge, the question is, what are you wanting to say in those runs? What are you wanting to be important about them? And then work backwards from that. How do we figure out what articulation style is going to help us say that or help us convey that to the audience? Cool? And I know somebody was asking about articulation in that area also. The groups of 16ths, all tongued, add slurs, etc. I think actually 3 different people at some point wrote to me about that, or a couple of you said it at the beginning of this call, but I know that's one of the things that was already on my notes. So it just got stars next to it. Do we feel satisfied with that section now that we've talked about articulating in it? Chris, you did a wonderful job. Would anybody else like to play that section and maybe do a couple of variations of articulations to see how they sound or feel? Let me go back to where the hand raising thing is. So Deborah, are you wanting to play, or are you still a hand up from earlier? Okay, and then EP, are you wanting to play?
I am not wanting to play, but I did have a question.
Sure.
Because I asked about the phrasing earlier, like in those more technical sounding passages. So if I'm understanding what you were just saying, basically messing with it or playing with the articulations a little bit will help that feel a little less technical and a little more phrased. Is that accurate?
Yeah, if it's feeling too technical to you, then it's going to sound technical to us. And if adding a slur is going to help it feel more like a flow or feel more, then of course that is an appropriate thing to consider doing, right?
So just to break it up and kind of make it a little less.
Just to make it feel good when you play it. That's the biggest thing, right? If it feels good when you're playing it, it's going to sound good to us. So yeah, take risks, take chances, try it. And if nobody gets hurt from it, then like you're fine to keep doing it. If adding a slur is going to like make somebody's, I don't know, step on a crack, break your, whatever, like it's adding a slur isn't going to hurt anybody, right? I think a little silly about that. All right. Feel good with that?
Thank you.
All right. And then Mary Ellen.
Sorry.
Nothing?
Yeah, sure. I can try it.
Let's hear it. Loving the hair.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to feel less old.
Did it work?
I've gotten a lot of compliments, so I guess.
All right.
Okay, please keep in mind, I know we're striving not for perfection, but this came right at the end of my orchestra season, so I haven't practiced it a lot. Okay.
brilliant playing, Marilyn. What
Did
is
it work?
something that you can compliment yourself on?
That I did most of it in double tonguing, not in single, because I have a tendency of moving back to single tonguing because it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That my double tonguing is getting better. um, and it was fun. I love this period of music, so these are so much fun for me. And 6/8, anything in threes is a joy. I love them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think it sounded really wonderful. Was there anything in that you think could still you want to talk about or discuss in any way?
Yeah, well, definitely making a decision as to where I want to put the slurs, like making an absolute decision, because there's some places I stuck a slur in just in autopilot that probably I should not have. So I need to determine where I want to put them ahead of time as opposed to just on the fly. Tone wise, just as I move through the different octaves, just to watch the tone. I also can't totally hear because I'm wearing earplugs.
Mm-hmm.
So my hearing is filtered, so I don't know what I sounded like. And that's it.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And just for the entire group out there, doing the earplug thing in virtual lessons or these group calls is really nice because then there's no chance of getting that echo feedback. So
Good.
wonderful.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you. I think you sounded really great. One thing that I'd like to try, if it's okay,
Yeah.
is in that very first run, could you imagine just a little bit more of a crescendo to the low A and then ground down into that low A? And maybe you can take a breath after that if you want to, but then feel the E as just being a response to the low A. So before we do it, because the E is on the harmonic, let's play that A fingering. Mm-hmm.
I'm very flat.
Let's try that one more time.
I'm sorry, my critics are screaming.
It's all right. Now let's put it in context of the run. So that way the high E is not being struck, but it's floating out as a response of the strength that you're giving the low A. Yeah. So another thing that we can kind of smoke and mirrors, razzle dazzle our audience is if it feels like one note is sticking out in a way that we don't want it to, like that high E to me just is coming out quite bright.
Yep.
We can make the note before it even louder, even stronger, more fortified. And then that is going to sound more balanced to the audience.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking for this consideration of really crescendoing to that low A.
Okay, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's keep the head up
Not
as you go to
flowing.
that. Excellent. And also the head movement was more subtle, which is good. A human tendency, our body follows the intention of the eyes. So as your eyes go down, right? And then our low notes are really flat and our high notes are really sharp. So if you just think about the direction of the air and the body moving in response to the air, that's great. That was really wonderful that time. How did that feel?
Good. And so I've marked it as, as opposed to, because I hate when the higher note sounds, like you said, very unbalanced. And the looking down, I'm learning. I'm working on that really hard.
We are all learning.
My flute teacher is constantly after me, lift your head. I know. Anyway.
Yeah, and habits develop for a few reasons. So I'm also redeveloping these habits of posture. And I think it's because for so much of my career, I was teaching littler kids with their stands down low and like being hunched over so I could, see the music at their height. And it's like, when did these postural habits happen? And how long have I had them? What do I need to do to change them? So
it's like this. I'm trying to change this. trying to fit in an orchestra, where you're all stuck and I'm trying to change this because I just automatically do it and I don't want to,
Right. Well, wonderful job. Wonderful playing. Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
All right. And then Lisa, movement 8. Did anybody else out there look at the eighth one? I know it was given as an option. It's a shorter caprice. And so I know that the third caprice being 2 pages with a ton of 16th notes looked intimidating. Hopefully everyone gave it a little bit of a try at least, because you never know how much you're going to love something until you try. But a couple of people waved their hands about trying this 8th one. All right, Lisa, let's hear it. I looked at it for the first time today, so I'm just going to let you teach it to me.
Okay, no pressure there. How far should I go?
However far feels great.
Let's shoot for the halfway point. How about that? Glass half full, right? Thank you.
Wonderfully done. Really beautiful playing. And thanks for sharing this with us. There was a question from somebody in the group about when to do appoggiatura versus crushed appoggiatura. And I love what you just demonstrated. If you don't mind my just talking about that a little bit.
Oh, no.
Because you did a combination of both. And this piece of music, this movement, you'll notice that they all look the same. All of the ornaments look like appoggiatura. None of them are crushed, or none of them are drawn crushed, at least not the example that I had. So it sounded to me, and Lisa, did you have, what made you decide, or what made you choose how you were going to approach those?
It felt like after all those 16th runs, to just play those 8th notes just as they were written, it was kind of anticlimactic or something. It just didn't seem to fit with all the runs. So I thought adding the crushed appoggiatura kind of made it a little bit more special and stand out a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you did was absolutely delightful and pleasant. So, and I don't have any measure numbers here, but at that piano where that scale in third starts, you did full appoggiatura, and that sounded really nice, suspending that sound of the D onto the next beat in that way, right? So we have the D shown before. And then the ornaments that we see on these 16th notes, there's really not time to turn them into anything other than like crushed appoggiatura, but you continued that crushed feeling as you continued on. And here I like it because the ornaments are actually separating repeated pitches versus suspending the repeated pitch. So we could have, but there's an ornament between them. And I think that little appoggiatura is a very folksy way of separating those repeated pitches. And it was just absolutely delightful. So regardless of why we choose to make these decisions, again, it comes down to the question of what do I want it to feel like? And the crispness of those, even though they are ornamenting 8th notes, as you go down the descending scale between the repeated pitches, I think was so delightful. And the weight that you gave the ones that were suspending the D sound over, I think gave that an appropriate feel too. So wonderful job with those ornaments, Lisa.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of people who had questions about ornaments in this movement. Does the way that Lisa played it in this little chat that we had about it satisfy those questions and those I don't want to say insecurities, but those, you know, makes us feel confident in the choices that we're making? Excellent. Lisa, any other questions or thoughts from you on this movement?
No, I think I like this piece. I think it's cute and light and lively and just fun. It's just fun to play.
Yeah, and you really gave it that. And I liked how toward the beginning, measure 1, 2, 3, 4, in the fifth measure where we have the repeated G's, but the changing lower note, E, G, D, G, E, G, D, G. You gave nice appropriate weight to the first note of the slur and then a bit of lift to the second note of the slur, which is really wonderful to help us hear that movement of the E, D, E, D, while the G just got to float away because that pitch is repeated enough. We don't really need to lean into that anymore. So wonderful demonstration and playing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions from the group out there about this, the eighth caprice, which probably wasn't written by Stamitz? It depends on where you look. One of the things I read said 4 of them are written by Stamitz, probably, and then 4 of them were written by Tacit, but it's unsure which 4. And then another place said the first 4 were written by Stamitz, and then 5 through 8 were written by Tacit. I don't know what the truth is. I haven't further investigated or gotten any like passes to go to any of these libraries to see the original transcripts to try to figure out handwriting myself. So regardless, they are delightful pieces to play. All right, no other questions? No other comments? Thank you all so much for making June an amazing month with the Stamitz. Or Tacit, or whoever wrote it. Next month, we will be doing Pan by Don John, which can be found in a couple of books, including the good old red and white book, the concert contest collection piece. I think it's also in the big old yellow book. So if you have it in a collection, just send me a note of what collection it's in, because I just want to create a list of collections of flute repertoire. In case anybody is wanting to just get the collection. But it is also in public domain, so you can find it on Flute Tunes or MSLP or your favorite public domain place. If you are interested in purchasing it and getting one of those collections, of course, when you visit our friends at fluteworld.com, use code Allison2026 for 10% off all of your sheet music and accessories. And yes, that even does apply to the more expensive accessories like Altieri bags and those really fancy flute cases and stuff like that. So do make sure that as you're investing in some of those things that you keep using that discount code, because, well, we deserve it too, right? And thanks Flute World for that support. We appreciate it. All right, I'll see you all next time.